welcome to Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Chris Yee.
And I'm Mike Delisio.
And today we're going to be talking about Sweetlands. This is by Uchikipachoya Games, and it is a cute little game about building your adorable little lands of sweetness.
I don't know if little quite fits it, but...
It's tiny. This is like a 15-minute game or less.
Designed by Tatsuko Chuo. This is someone, Mike, that you're, I think, most familiar with out of the three of us here.
Yeah, I've been kind of following him for a while. The first game I became aware of that he designed was Aqua Garden, and he also designed Ostia and Atlas Lost, all of which have been reviewed on this channel. So this is his biggest, heaviest game so far.
All right, well, I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to show you just briefly how this is played. I also am probably going to call it Sweet Mess because for some reason I can't remember Sweet Lands. I keep calling it the wrong name. So here we go. We'll be right back. Sweet Mess is a big game, so I will not go into all the details of how this is played. I just want to give you kind of an overview so that you can see if this game is a game for you. So starting off to show you what this board is. So the main board is this part here in the middle. This is kind of like an end game scoring bunch of tracks. These are going to be multipliers at the end of the game. We have our main action selection area over here. These are going to be specialty tiles that you can get throughout the game, and then just kind of an explanation of free actions. This is going to be bonuses that you get at every round, and at the end of the round you'll choose a new bonus, and so there's a little bit of interaction there. Finally, we have our player areas. Now, this is one person's play area, so it is a big setup to set all of this up, and it's 3 different boards, as you can see. So what we have is we have our main map over here. This is where we're going to be building out these little hex tiles, and we're going to be placing them down, and then we're going to be placing roads next to them, which will eventually make them flip over. Oops, sorry, we lay them down like that. They'll eventually flip over, and they will give us some sort of income, or maybe help us move on these endgame tracks. Now we have our main player board over here that we also have our income. So think terraforming Mars. That's kind of how this income track is working. We have these buildings that will go out on tiles on the map that have flipped over. And this is kind of Terra Mystica style where you pick them up and you will have some sort of benefit. Sometimes you'll be able to unlock an additional ongoing benefit as well. Then we have our little player character. This gives us our income. This gives us special player abilities that are unique to us. And then an option of how to build this specialty ice cream building over here, which will unlock a new personal player power that's just for us. Now these boards do slip in and out, these specialty players, and as you can see, this sheet affects more than just this specialty area down here. It is what changes these bonuses here in the middle. It changes what starting income you have and some of these bonuses down here. So these players are very unique. Finally, the last player board is this little track up here. So we have our milk track, which starts with a little carriage, and you can eventually unlock a train. And so you're going to be moving down to this milk track, needing to unlock these buildings to be able to get past them. And then we also have our croissant track, which will unlock our ability to place these little bunny cookies out on the board. All right, I'm not going to walk you through the whole round structure because there's a lot of cleanup and setup and all that kind of stuff. But what a basic turn looks like is players are either going to play an action disc on this board. And if you notice, the action discs do not have a specified player color. They are just all this orange color. Or you are going to build a card from hand, and the cards cost money at the top. So let's talk about cards first. So if you are going to build a card, you have to be able to afford the money. That's this orange track over here. When you pay for it, you pay the top cost. Sometimes there's little discounts. And then you can gain the benefit that's here in the middle. Optionally, you can choose to automate the card, which means you're going to tuck it under the color of the frame here. So this one is a gray card. You would spend one of these little gems and you would tuck it under here. Now you don't gain this bottom benefit immediately, but if you do have the opportunity to trigger an automation for gray, then you would gain that bonus right there. Now these cards in your hand are not just to build, but they are also going to be the cost that you're going to be paying to place out discs. The initial disc that you play out, or that anybody plays out in one of these boxes, is going to cost 1 card. That card will just be discarded from the game. You'll never see that card again. But then if someone else wants to take the same action later on, they're going to have to pay 2 cards. So as you can see, these cards are both money as well as something to play. As the game progresses, new action spaces will be unlocked, and these are just stronger versions of other actions that already exist. Now, play continues as players either play a card or take one of these actions over here until they have to pass. Now, you always have to hold on to one card from round to round, but when you pass, you go ahead and trigger these little egg timer looking symbols over here, and these are going to be some sort of end of round, usually scoring. Once everyone has passed, there's a cleanup phase, there's an income phase, and so players are going to be gaining income based on these incomes that they have over here, as well as anything else on their board that happens to have that little income symbol that's right there. Next, I want to talk about this endgame scoring multiplier track. You're going to be progressively moving up on this, and depending on what area you're in will determine what your multiplier is for a particular thing that you've done throughout the game. So talking about the first one here, this is for placing tiles on your board. You have to always match them with the region based on the color. But these tiles are going to be giving you either income or movement on these tracks. So this is how you actually move up on the tracks, is going to be mostly from placing out these tiles, getting roads next to them, and then that was what's going to let them flip over and become available to build buildings on. So we have multipliers for getting the bunny cookies out, and those are big multipliers because these are hard to do. You have to be able to move up on this croissant track to be able to get these out, and then you have to place them where you already have a building on the map. Roads I already mentioned, those go on the map. This is the symbol for buildings. So for every 2 buildings, 1 point. And then of course it upgrades so that eventually for every building you can get 2 points. And these buildings are these areas over here, this little building here, and then the milks that you have right there. Oh, and then also these little bags of coffee. Now the gray track over here is for tucked cards. Now you're going to only be able to maximum get 9 tucked cards. As you unlock some of these buildings, they allow you to tuck more. And so initially you're only allowed to have 1 set of tucked cards each. Then finally, we have the milk track, which is this track up here. Once again, you have to be able to remove the milks to be able to go past an area. And that's going to move you up on the milk track bonus, which I'll talk about probably next. So in this game, there are 3 different victory point markers, and I mentioned the milk track, so let's talk about that first. As you move up on the milk track, which will be kind of an end of round scoring that's on this little milk thing here, you are going to move up your little milk victory point marker. Now this marker is worth nothing at the end of the game unless you've moved up your disc here, and then you're going to get points based on where you're at on that level. The other form of unique scoring is city points. Now city points are actually worth 2 points for every 1 city point that you have. So they're doubled at the end of the game for points. And you can also move up. And then finally, we have just the basic victory point track, which is the little cup. So for a brief sum up summary, the game is going to take place across 5 rounds. Players are going to play as much as they can until they have to pass. And then there's going to be benefits while passing, and then benefits when you have income. There's also going to be a cleanup set where everyone's going to redraw cards. They're going to reset these boards. And then eventually they're going to be able to start playing again. Then at the end of the game, players are going to gain points for their multipliers on these tracks, any multipliers that they've reached for building all of one type of building. They're also going to gain points for any of these first come, first serve bonuses, and then end game points as well. All right, there are a ton of other rules, but hopefully this gives you a general idea of how this game is played and laid out. And let's go back to the studio and share our thoughts.
All right, so there you go. You get an idea on how Sweetlands plays. It is a complex Euro game, and it has many of the trappings of modern complex Euro games in that it is large on table. It has a large table footprint. It has a lot of interacting mechanisms that kind of rely upon each other in kind of gear turny type ways. You've got tracks, you've got tile laying, you've got worker placement, you've got multiple modes of scoring. And so this is a game that I don't know if the two of you felt like this was closest to something like a Vital Lacerda game, where it is a lot of mechanisms that all kind of interconnect amongst each other.
Interesting. I thought more like this is Terraforming Mars meets Terra Mystica. That's kind of what I was thinking, because you've got that card play, you've got the unlocking stuff, and it like opens up new engine building. So that was kind of where my brain went.
You can definitely see those inspirations, even with like with some of the mechanisms I think are great, like the round bonuses, those tiles that you can choose to pass, and then you get actions, not action, but you get powers available to you that very much feels inspired from Terra Mystica and everything. But I do agree that this one also has kind of more. It has the big deck of cards from Terraforming Mars. It has that round sequence a la Terra Mystica. But yes, as Mike said, there's so much more that feels kind of circles within circles of mechanisms. You move further on this track, which allows you to unlock this thing, which opens up this. One of the tracks literally is 2 tracks overlaid over themselves, the carriage that you move along. Then you can unlock the train and move it along the same track. and doing so is not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it can be very rewarding.
Absolutely. And Wendy, I think that Terra Mystica is an astute observation, because although I have not played it, I do believe that the designer shouted that out as one of the inspirations for this game. And so, I defer to you since I have not played that game, but I do know the designer also mentioned that as something that was an inspiration for this. So that doesn't necessarily surprise me. So I guess one of the things we can start with is the production, because it is a relatively lavish production. Uchibakoya, the publisher of this game, started off as a custom board game component company before they got into the game design business. And so you can see the hallmarks of that here. You have hundreds of beautiful wood, custom wood pieces, many of them screen printed. You've got multiple boards. Each player board is a double layered board, but it's done in the way that you flip it open so that you can slide custom, asymmetric characters in there. So the production, I think, is lovely. But as I hinted at earlier, it is a huge table hog. It takes up a lot of space on the table. Lots of cards, tiles. So this has a little bit of everything. It has not only the feel of a bit of a kitchen sink, but the look of it too. There's so much going on. What do you guys feel about the production of the game?
Well, I was going to say, to that point of a table hog, is a very normal, like our dice tower tables that we bring to some events. I tried to set it up as a 4-player game on a very normal sized folding table that we often play a lot of big games on, and I could not fit it all. I had to move it down to a 3-player game. And so it is, when Mike says that it's big, it's massive. Like, it is a massive game.
I laughed because I skimmed through the overview that you filmed, and you're like, yeah, it's your player. It's 3 boards. You like separated them, and it looked like a transformer. Like, here's everything. But it's a lot, and it's perhaps too much. It might be a bridge too far, genuinely, for some people's physical table, and it might just be a 2-player game at home for us because of table space. That being said, it is lavish is a great word that you used, Mike. It's so beautiful. I love the theming, even though this really is an economic, engine building game. It could have just been, ancient Rome, the arch building game. No, they went with this phenomenal theme that really pulls me in and does keep me just giddy and happy, because I like the gameplay loop and everything, but also just when I finally get to put up my ice cream cone clock tower, when I get to build the brownie buildings or the cheese buildings. Our daughter walked by, we had it set up, and she goes, I want to play that one. And because I'm a good parent, I said, no. But it has that look that's so enticing and inviting, but also, I think, very readable despite the massive and huge footprint of everything.
Well, and with that, it is surprisingly beige for how beautiful and cute it is. So at least they stuck with that, like, you know what you're getting into beige-wise, right?
Yeah, the colors are a bit muted, browns, light yellows, beiges, things along those lines, with little pops of color here. But you're right, it's mostly muted colors, and I don't know if this was done purposely, but I think that helps with some of the visual noise, because there is a lot to keep an eye on, and it is readable, as you said, Chris. I think that that is very important, because it's also, as in many modern heavy Euro games, it's icon heavy. There are a lot of icons in the game, a lot of icons on the cards, icons on your player boards, icons on the little tile laying part of your player board. So to have those muted colors helps. It doesn't like hurt my eyes to kind of keep track of it all. Let's just talk a little bit about some of these mechanisms, the meat of the game, because there is a lot going on, and we've kind of, hinted at some of this. You've got asymmetric player powers where every player is going to have a particular ability that will perhaps guide them towards what strategy they may want to go in the game. You might have a character that incentivizes you to build out your roads, or you might have something that, I'm just making this stuff up, but you may have something that incentivizes you to go down the prosperity track, things along those lines. And I think in a game like this, for me, I appreciate that, because otherwise you can get overwhelmed with choices. There are so many things you want to do and you cannot do them all, that those asymmetric characters help there. You've got a lot of income and resource management, because you not only are getting resources, but you're also getting income every round that is going to be producing those. There's just a lot going on. Oh, and I'm not even talking about the card play, which is really what drives the whole thing. So there is just a lot going on. And I will say the positive of that, in my opinion, is that it feels very rich and rewarding at the end of a game. You feel like you've accomplished, maybe not as much as you wish you had, but you've accomplished something. But on the negative side of that is that there is, I believe, a steep learning curve, and the teach is pretty significant.
You know what's interesting is I taught a couple people this game somewhat recently, and the teacher was like, I don't know where to begin. Like this is a hard teach. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of icons. There's a bajillion boards, right? You have to teach every single part of the board. But after we got through like a round and a half, I just saw the light bulbs clicking on. Yeah. And at the end of the game, it was interesting because the people that I was teaching, they're like, no, I feel like this isn't as difficult as Terraforming Mars. I feel like that's a heavier game. And they were like comparing it to some other games that they felt like were heavier. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because I definitely feel like this has a lot going on. But I thought that was very interesting that there is... It all just makes a lot of logical sense, like the way that the tracks all work, the way that the victory points all work, especially those like victory point tracks. Like they really lead you to very specific parts of your board. And once you understand all those individual pieces, it just makes a lot of sense. And so I think that this could have been so much worse than it is. I say that. I actually really love this game. But I think that they did a very good job at making things very clear, so that even though the teach is very, very full, it makes sense.
It's a bit overwhelming up front, but by your second play, you're going to say, I know where the systems are. I know where, like you said, the tracks are pointing to. And I think that's a good strength of it. Not every game needs to be as onboarding friendly as others, especially when they're as deep and as rich as this, to use a sweets analogy, right? And a bit of acquired taste after, from that first play. But it's not that it's obtuse. It's just a lot up front. But yeah, partway through that first game, you see what you're doing and you go, oh, I would have made very different decisions early in the game. And so I think it's in the rule book that it kind of explains a few target scores to kind of go for, if I remember correctly, and why we didn't hit anywhere close to those. So there's room to improve. There's reason to come back to this. And I think that that's something that's appreciated. You're not going to be good at it right from the get-go. But I do want to mention briefly just a few of the little negatives I have, because we're saying a lot of things I really like. Actually, really quick, I want to hit Mike's point. The card play is fantastic in this game. The fact that it's a worker placement type driving action selection in this game, without your individual pool of workers, you pay cards to place out the discs. More if the action has already been visited before, or you can take a turn to play out those cards that give you ongoing or immediate. It's really good. It's so satisfying. I have a few little quibbles, and I don't know if you guys will agree or if you have other thoughts on this, right? So obviously teaching it is a lot. I think that there's the city scoring tracker. So it's a separate victory point tracker piece that scores at the end of the game 2 points per city point that you got.
Potentially 3, yeah.
Potentially 3. And I think that there's a few little reasons why that kind of matters, but it feels like kind of an extra hurdle that was confusing to learn. I thought that the objectives that you're racing towards can sometimes be a little unsatisfying when, the certain threshold, I think the third one gets hit and then the rest wipe when you're kind of close to it. And then, let's see, the last one I wrote down here in my very bad handwriting, it's a little more solitaire compared to the games I think it draws inspiration from, even Terraforming Mars. There's no central board. There is that central action selection, but everything else you're doing is kind of individualistic on your player board. So those are my little quibbles that I do have with the game.
Yeah, do you have any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, very interesting because, Chris, I don't have a lot of quibbles, but you named both of them. Well, no, you named one of them, and the other one I'm going to mention. I do agree that I think I understand mechanically why there's essentially 3 different scoring. Everyone has 3 different scoring markers. You've got your kind of your total VP, you've got your city scoring, and your prosperity scoring. I wish there was a slightly more elegant way for that to have happened because it feels a little bit off, clunky maybe. But again, I think I understand why it's there, but I just wish there was a slightly different way that could have been handled. And honestly, my biggest negative, and this is probably a me thing, and so I'll just put that out there, is that I think the game is long. I think heavy Euro games are going to be longer. And I think that my maybe tolerance for lengthy games has maybe shrunk a bit over time. But I do think that this is just skirting the edge. I want to keep coming back and playing it, and I think I'm maybe giving a little hint to my final score here in a minute. But I do think it skirts the edge of being long, especially at 4. At 4, and if you're teaching new players, yeah, it's going to be 4 hours probably. I think once you've played it a while, and if you're playing it at 2 and 3, certainly it'll be shorter, but it is long. Those are my 2 biggest kind of beefs about it, is that multi-scoring and the length.
I think one of my biggest beefs about it is just the setup. There are so many little buildings you have to put out on every single player board. It is just so many little pieces all at once. Like, I wish that there was a way to make that easier and quicker. And even if I were to leave this game out and replay it, you change the characters, and when you slide the characters out, maybe there's a way I could finagle it to slide a new character in and leave all those little buildings there, but it's just so much setup for that. So be prepared that your setup's going to be like a good chunk of time before you even get around to teaching the game.
Any other thoughts before we go on to final scores? Either of you?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. I have a suspicion I'm coming in at the lowest score here.
Okay.
And I'm coming in at an 8, which is it's a very, very positive score. I agree with those complaints, right? I'm very well aware of them. But man, do I still have a ton of fun as I'm playing this. As I'm going through that card play, going through that action selection, it's fairly tight, despite the fact that there's a lot of options for actions, because some of those really key ones do fill up. And you sit there and say, am I willing to trash away 2 cards just to take that action right now? 3 because someone else just went there. It gives you some room to pivot. I'll gain an extra action disc, which I can place out there for free, but you're going to have to work towards that. But it feels so satisfying that there's nice ways to kind of solve through those puzzles that you put yourself into. The tracks are very satisfying and very exciting. And I'm okay with the fact that I'm not very good at this game, but as I play more, I can see that I'm going to get better and better, and so it has that room for growth, right? Just like a good sweet treat. It's not just an immediate sweet, and then it just kind of fades into nothingness like a Twinkie. No, it's got that rich depth behind it that kind of lingers and makes you go, ooh, yeah, I want to play that again. I want to try something different. So despite the complaints that we all mentioned and the obvious time and size and all that stuff, man, it's so fun. It's an 8 out of 10 for me.
Nice. All right, Mike, you or me, who do you think is lower?
I think I may be a little lower. I'll go ahead and go next. I'm giving it an 8.5. I think it is outstanding, a seal of excellence for sure. With the quibbles that I mentioned before, and also when you had mentioned those end game objectives, Chris, I do agree with that as well. A little side note, I had played an early version of this a number of times before the production copy, and the early version I had did not even have those end game objectives, and honestly, I don't know that I would have missed them. So I agree with you there. But what it does well, oh my gosh, it does so well. Tatsuka Cho, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and apologies if I'm not, is becoming one of my favorite game designers. I am amazed by the scope and the breadth of the designs that have come from him. You know, you've got family weight games like Aqua Garden, you've got tech tree games like Atlas Lost, you've got Ostia, this beautiful rondelle game, and now you've got this, the heaviest of them all, card-driven worker placement, tile laying, everything, and it works. It works together very well. As you mentioned, Chris, this is a game that I feel like I am just scratching the surface of what it has to offer, and I've played it many times, and I still have a long way to go to feel like I'm getting any kind of efficiency and proficiency in the game. It is a game I'm going to keep coming back to, but what keeps it from a 9.5, I think, are those quibbles I mentioned. I think it runs a bit long. I do think it takes up a tremendous amount of table space. I think that the ambition and the breadth of the game in itself, both physically and mechanically, is going to mean that it's a game that is maybe a bit niche. Maybe it's going to have to find its audience, because I think that it's going to take a very particular type of gamer that's going to really like this game. This is actually a little bit different than the games that I've been wanting to play lately, but I just think it is so good. The theme, I agree, Chris, is something that I think if it was different, it would be slightly less appealing to me. So an 8.5, who knows? Maybe as I continue to play it, it'll go up a little bit higher. But right now, that's where I'm landing.
Nice. That's a good score. And I think this game did find its audience, and that's definitely me. So I'm giving this a 9.5.
See, there you go.
I absolutely loved this. Every part of it, other than the setup, like, I just adored. The card play, the interaction with a worker placement, the building up the tiles on your board, you know what I mean? Like, just all the hexes that are going on. I love the end game tracks and how you have to invest in things like the milk track to make them score. But as soon as you do, you can invest a little bit in a lot and then really focus in on a couple. There's so many different strategies to try, and there's so many cards. Maybe that's another slight negative, is I usually don't like games as much that have those massive decks of cards. But I also don't feel like I'm searching for a single card. I feel like they all do a lot of the same general stuff, and I can make everything work. And because you're using them as payment, they don't gum up my hand. So I just basically absolutely love everything that's going on with this. I want to play it time and time again. I wish that I had a personal copy, because this is one that I could see being on my top 100 for many years to come.
Leaving it set up, coming back to it the next night.
Exactly, yeah. Just like leaving it out and playing it over and over again, yeah.
Well, very cool. All right. Well, a high score of a 9.5 is going to give Sweetlands here a seal of excellence from us here at the Dice Tower. All of us enjoyed it and everything. But if you've gotten a chance to play it, let us know what you think below, and let us know which piece you would probably eat first. For me, it's the brownie building.
It's the bunnies.
Cookie bunnies. I'm with you, Wendy. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Chris Yee.
And I'm Mike DeLisio.
Thanks for joining us for Sweetlands. We'll see you later.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.